Hi everyone. Hope you're ready to get some useful and valuable insights, as there is our fourth episode of Ask the Expert podcast, and I'm really happy to announce our guest Sam. Sam works as a vice president of marketing at Loxo in Florida, and this company provides talent intelligence platform, and it's a leader in recruiting software. So, hi Sam, thanks a lot for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm doing well. The sun is shining. I know it's daytime here. It's evening and early morning there. So I'm glad that we can make this happen.
Great, great to know that. Okay, I think we can start with the question. Asul?
Sure. Hi again, Sam. People come to LinkedIn for different goals. Some come to find leads and partners. Some are trying to connect with their existing clients, to make their customer service better. Or some people trying to conduct interviews for customer development research. But the primal goal is to build stronger relationships with their target audience. So maybe you can give us some tips. What strategy would you recommend us to follow?
Yeah, well, happy to. And this is only speaking from my experience, what I've seen, not saying it's the perfect one. I'm definitely still learning and trying to improve upon it every day. So here's, hopefully what I've gone through is able to show, what's worked for me, what hasn't worked for me, and then we can keep working off of it.
Actually, you
So,
have a great community of 22,000 of followers on LinkedIn, and that's a great number, huge number.
yeah, no, I'm humbled that people are curious to hear what I share and everything, but it's always exciting because I enjoy the back and forth of it, and that's honestly a big part of, I think, your question in itself is it's like the relationships, the networking, and everything else.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I would say is I only started doing this 3 years ago was when I really started to spend more time and put more resources behind, okay, like if I want to make LinkedIn work and get the most out of it, what should I be doing? So the first hurdle is the same thing you'll hear from a lot of people, which is just, don't overthink it. You're often critiquing yourself way more in your head than most other people will. So just, overcome that a little bit. But from there, I think the next big thing is a lot of people say it's business, it's not personal, right? So it's always like trying to get business, trying to drive prospects. But with something like LinkedIn and social, like it actually is personal because that's where people start to understand who you are. You get to add some of your personality to it. And that's how you can stand out a little bit more because there's countless, hundreds of thousands B2B marketers out there talking about B2B marketing and everything else. So if everyone looked, talked, sounded the same, then who do you know to follow, what type of flavor to their messaging, so to speak, does stick. So what I found is one, don't shy away from your personality and how you like to talk, how you like to communicate, how you like to share different things. Everyone does a little bit differently. How I share is very different from how Chris Walker shares, which is very different from how someone like Nick Bennett shares. So really just embrace the medium that works well for you. And then another thing is you're never going to make every single person happy. If you're worried about turning off like one
It's my
person,
problem, Bingo.
yeah, it's a thing where you're like, look, you're not out here to offend anyone or say anything unprofessional. Obviously, you know that, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a handful of people who absolutely love what you just shared, become very avid supporters, and you're gonna have a couple people who disagree. Like, that's good. That's normal, healthy conversation. If you were to go up to 5 strangers at a conference, 2 are going to agree with you, 1's going to disagree. Why is it any different if you're on a platform? So don't be scared of that. Honestly, I enjoy them the most because that's where I get to learn when someone does disagree, why? Do they have a good point? Okay, should I learn from that and incorporate that into how I think about this moving forward? Or do I use this as an objection later on where I know a lot of you may think this, but actually it's wrong, here's why, and be able to walk through how you encountered it. So don't be scared of coming up against that. So that's a big part of it. And then an interesting thing that I've seen, you two have probably recognized this as well recently, is historically LinkedIn had been share a bunch of content from your company page, right? Like come join our webinar, check out how great our product is, look at this event. But more and more often you're now seeing real individuals, company leaders, members of the company, thought leaders, experts, who are adding their voice to the conversation and doing it from their personal profile. And between the algorithm just likes personal profiles a heck of a lot more than company profiles, but there's something about seeing a real person's face versus a company logo that makes you want to engage with it more, because you know that there's someone on the back end. We've been trained that if say Delta Airlines shares a post on LinkedIn, if I comment on it, I know I'm not going to get a response back. That's just like, we've been trained into that, right? But if the CMO of Delta Airlines shares something, I'm like, hey, there's a person who shared this thought. Like, I'm curious, what do you think about this? There's a much higher likelihood that they'll respond, engage in some form or fashion. I think that's a big part of why we're seeing this boom start to occur, because it's adding to the conversation going on. And then you start to get exposed to the brand, the company that they work at. And that's where the rabbit hole begins of, okay, that's kind of cool. They're talking about marketing all the time. I wonder if they work at a company that does marketing, or who they might recommend for different products, different services. So it leads people to go and figure out, where should they go to get advice, and what product services should they explore if needs ever come up around that. So I definitely got more thoughts, but I just spoke for about 5 minutes straight. Curious, like, what do you two think? Is there anything that you wanna talk about within that?
Oh, I totally loved your point. A lot of people say about LinkedIn when they're talking about being successful on LinkedIn is not to be scared of posting some stuff and writing comments. But I loved your point that to make most out of it, you have to appreciate even the opposing point of view. Yeah, because that's how you can get some new insights or some new idea for your even for your next post. Why not, right? And in those arguments with other people, you can make new friends. I believe that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
no, it's so true.
Yeah,
and
and
the Mhm.
sorry, also for interrupt you,
Sure.
because I'm just thinking about how many problems are in our mind. For example, overestimating our audience, or some I don't know, problems that we think that people don't like us, don't like our product, or don't like our page on LinkedIn, and it's very not silly, but very stupid, I think, because I really feel you, and I really agree with your arguments and with your points regarding psychological moments. I think it's very important in every social media platform, in LinkedIn, in Instagram, and Facebook, and whatever. And yeah, it's a key point here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are. Honestly, I talk about common sense marketing a lot, like how you go about buying. I would also say people are, because there's a screen in between them, sometimes they are more quick to share thoughts, ideas that may be offensive or misconstrued by others. So I would say the easiest way I think about it is pretend that you're not behind a computer screen, but this message, share a post on LinkedIn, it's gonna be seen by a couple thousand people. Pretend that instead of showing that to a screen of a couple thousand people, that you were to walk into an arena of a couple thousand people. You have a microphone in your hand. Would you say what you're about to say? That's usually how I'll kind of approach it and be like, if I'm comfortable saying this and knowing that, it would lead to healthy discussion, sure. But if I know people are going to get angry, it's going to make people upset, and they're definitely not the right things to say, then you probably shouldn't say it here as well. So, that's going to come down to your own personal preference of what's appropriate, what's inappropriate to you. But in a
That's
very
wise.
statement, that's probably how I would approach it, is looking at it from that kind of angle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And coming back to our original topic, just wanted to ask if when you connect with new people, do you write them straight away in the messages, saying something like "Thanks for connecting, let's stay in touch," or um,
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I go about it the opposite way. Usually,
Mhm.
I'll connect with someone because either they've engaged with something I've shared, or I see their post come up somewhere. I've seen them comment on something. I'll be like, that's a really interesting point of view. I'll comment on it. I'll add to it. And then after that, I might send a connection request. Most of the time, honestly, I don't send like any messaging with it, because they know who I am at that point. They've had some type of back and forth with me. They've seen that. So that's when someone's more active. You can go about it that way. If there's someone that they aren't as active on LinkedIn, usually I'll do something short, sweet, meaningful, just like, hey, saw that you're a CMO in the B2B SaaS space, constantly looking to learn from others, would love to follow along, like something like that. It is unfortunate that it is starting to get to the point where I've had to end a couple messages with, I promise I'm not going to pitch you anything, in order for people to accept, because it's starting to be abused. So that's why I'm just like, just want to learn from you. I'm not here to sell you anything, I promise. And leave it at that. So, but more often than not, when they have engaged with you in some way, they've seen you, they know that you're a real person. You're not like a robot or someone who's just going to try to sell them something, and they'll be much more open to connecting with you. So yeah, it's a fun one. But when I think about how more, it was really interesting the day when I started seeing like people following me without connecting. I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Like they just want to follow thoughts and everything. So I kind of reverse thought back, like, why is this? What's going on? And this goes back to something that I was taught when I was at Refine Labs, which was like, how do you join the conversation and start to become a voice in this space? And it goes against a lot of what I learned in school, what I experienced through my first handful of years as a marketer myself, where everything's like, if you want to give something in marketing, you have to put a form on it. You have to, they have to give you something in return. But at Refine Labs, we flipped it on the head and said, just share educational content, make it free. What's going to happen is people will then associate you and your brand is helpful, and they're going to remember you when certain topics come up. So what happens then is, the other day I had a need for like PR services, and instead of going to Google, best PR services, I remembered an individual who talks about this all the time on LinkedIn. And you know what I did? I went to his profile and then I clicked on his company page. I didn't go and search for any of the Google stuff. I trusted him already. I knew that he was an expert in the space. So that just cut out every other competitor before that. So it's one thing we used to always say was, how do you win before Google? And that's a really effective way. So there was no short-term gain for him. He'd been doing this for years, but just through the aggregation of it continuing to pop up, that's what happened when my need finally came around. Was I knew where to go when that came.
Thank you so much for your answers, for such valuable content. I think there are like 3 important topics. Sorry, because I texted you about one question, but thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you. Hope you both do. Hope you have a good rest of your night and a good start to your day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Talk to you all later.
Okay. Thank